Over the last few months, I have been looking for used PC parts, and I have been finding some pretty good deals, and this month will be no different, where we've got some leads already on a heap of different old used PCs. Now, I've been sort of taking a detour from the main RTX 3000 and the RX 6000 series graphics cards, and I've been focusing more on the budget end, not just in looking for used PC parts, but also in terms of building PCs and flipping them. And I've been having some pretty good success. And as some people say, you can never have too much of a good thing. So we're going to continue on that strength. We're going to keep hunting some budget PC parts. So let's go get into it and see what deals we can pull up on good old Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace. So starting off with good old Gumtree, the first deal that we put an offer down on was a GTX 1650 Super. They're asking 250 Aussie dollars, and this was only listed like 2 hours ago, and there's already 2 offers down. So I know there's competition for it, so I offered 250 Aussie, just their asking price, because these go on the used market here for around 350, and on eBay they can go up to around $400. So picking this up for 250 in this current market is actually still, believe it or not, a decent deal. Then next up we've got a GTX 650 Ti, and they're asking $50. I put an offer of 30, and I also put, of course, all the USD pricing up there for you guys internationally or in the US, so you can get a gauge of what kind of prices I'm offering for these parts. Then we've got an ASROCK A520M HDV motherboard. They're asking 30 Aussie for it. I put in an offer of 25, and there's no other offers down. So if we can pick up an A520 for this price, always a great deal to pick up a motherboard for an absolute steal. Moving over to Facebook Marketplace now, and I can already see one big trend that's starting to come more and more common as the months go by, is that marketplaces actually in Australia, at least where I am locally, got a lot more listings than Gumtree has, especially for individual parts. As opposed to a few years ago, Gumtree used to be all the rage, where everyone would put all their listings on Gumtree. So at least when it comes to computer parts here, I got a lot more to choose from, where the first listing is a Ryzen 5 1600. They're asking 120, I put in an offer of 90. And then next up, we got here GTX 960 4GB, they're asking 150, put in an offer of 100. Then we got a GTX 1050 2GB, so they're asking 150, a little bit steep, put in an offer of 110. So hopefully we can land that for a pretty good price. Then there's a 1050 Ti 4GB WindForce. They're asking 200. I put in an offer of 150. Then we've got here a GTX 760. I put in an offer of $50 because it is a 760. And as you may or may not know, Kepler is losing driver support from NVIDIA. I think it is from October onwards. So that's pretty much essentially going to make this card legacy. And that's not going to be good for future games that come out, even if they are relatively easy to play. Though, next up here, we've got a combination of a GTX 760 and a 770. And they're both 4GB cards. I put in an offer of 140 cash. So we'll see how we go with that one. Then we've got a Ryzen 5 2600. They're asking 150, put in an offer of 120. And then we've got a GTX 1070. They're asking 500. I put an offer of 380. Then we've got an i7 3770 and 8GB, and they're asking for this combo $100. I put an offer of 70, and that would actually make for a pretty good deal, especially because you're getting the 8GB thrown in. Then next up, we've got a 1080 Ti Waterforce. They're asking 700. They've dropped it from 750, but my thinking is that not a whole lot of people want to buy this because it's got a water block on it, and they kind of have to use it in a custom water cooling build, but that's really not a problem. You can take the cooler off, put an Arctic Accelero on there, for example, and so I put in an offer of 600. Then the last 3 deals we've got here are all deals on RAM, where the first is a G-Skill kit of DDR3. They're asking $70. I put in an offer of $50. Now, there is one thing I really like about the G-Skill memory, this stuff with the red heat sinks on, but we'll talk about it later if we do land the deal. Then we've got a single stick of 16GB of DDR4 memory. They're asking 70. I put an offer of 50, so if we can land that, that'll be a really good price, even if it's got no RGB or heat sinks on it. Then the final deal is a 64GB kit of DDR4 Trident Z Neo memory, and they're asking 500. I put an offer of 400. Now, this stuff easily goes for around $600, the Neo. And you may be thinking, Brian, why would you need 64GB for a reflip? And actually, if I land this one, I'll be able to upgrade my personal rig for video editing from 64GB to 128GB, where I've been doing some testing lately, and with my 4K workflow editing process, 64GB of RAM might not even be enough in 2021. But I have to do a lot more research on that, and if I do come into some interesting findings, I'll make a dedicated video. But with that said, it's time to go hit the road. We're gonna give Les a call, but there's also a contact in Brisbane that I've got to hit up where I picked up a heap of different old PCs from them last time. Now they've kind of restocked, and they said, Brian, come pick up some PCs. And I just said, as always, if the price is right, you can expect to see the Yes Man there. So let's go hit the Yes Mobile. So we just finished up seeing Les, and he had a lot more than I thought he would have this month. I mean, when I said I was stocking up, I didn't realize I was going to be stocking up this much, because we've come into a little bit of a problem, and that is I've kind of like already mainly filled up the car, but there's someone else up and around this area that also has a lot of deals for me. So this month could be the most packed the Stinger will ever get in the history of the channel. But we're going to just go to this next deal, just roll with the punches, and let's see what is crack-a-lackin', because I got to hurry and get there right now because I was already meant to be there 10 minutes ago. Up now, another 11 PCs plus a box full of motherboards, i3s, and RAM. I think a lot of this stuff is first, second, and we've also got some fourth gens in there as well with some i7 4770. So I'm gonna have to like detail everything on all these deals when we get back to the studio, because we are kind of in a bit of a rush here, where we did get some replies on some of the deals that I put out earlier in the day. And one of those deals is the 64 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. They accepted the $400 offer sort of after a little bit of haggling. They wanted $450. I just said, look, man, $400's all I can go to. So they accepted on that. The i7 3770 and 8 gigabytes of RAM, they accepted the $70 offer. And also the Ryzen 5 1600, they accepted our $90 offer. And then the last deal that we're potentially working on now as well is the 1080 Ti for $600. They came back and said $650. I just said, look, man, I can only go to $600. And sometimes you do a yo dude, hey bro, and even a hey man. I did a hey man, what's going on? $600 is all I can do. And so we'll see. Hopefully we get that 1080 Ti as well. But in terms of some of the rejected deals, the GTX 760, they're holding firm at $100 on that. The GTX 960 actually sold that before I could get in and do a deal on that. And then there was the GTX 1070. They wanted to hold firm at $500. So they're the deals we're not going to get. Unfortunately, of course, we do need graphics cards, but when the price is wrong, I'm just going to wait. So we just finished up now picking up the i7 3770, and it was funny because the guy actually had two sets of the 3770. So he messaged me initially and accepted the $70 offer for the 8 gigabytes of RAM and 3770 for $70. But then he said, would you like another set? And I'm like, sure thing. Never turned down a good deal. So we just picked up that now, and it's weird because it's like right in the city, which is the biggest city in my state. So it's just kind of unusual to pick up a deal right in the heart of a city where there's all these cars going by and it's really hard to get a park. But nonetheless, we've made that happen, and we've got to go pick up now another deal on the G.Skill 16 gigabytes of memory that we put in an offer for a $50. They kind of accepted it. It was weird. It's like a contingent exception based on the fact that I buy some more PC parts. So we're going to go check that out now, what other parts this person has. And as always, hopefully it ends up working out to be a good deal. But also the Stinger is like officially really full. I've actually got to demount my tripod and take the microphone off and put the camera in here. And that's funny, is I've still got some memory left over
from a previous deal that I got in a different month. We've now just picked up the final deal with, actually, it's not the final deal. I've got to go pick up one more now. That's the Ryzen 5 1600, but we got a PC. It was an i7-3770. It's just sitting on the back here. This car literally cannot fit any more PCs in it. We've got that right there. We've got motherboards, RAM, and we got this whole last bit, this last stint here for 250 bucks. So let's just get this Ryzen deal and get home and start unpacking this thing. So I'm now back in my home city and I picked up the Ryzen 5 1600, and while I just picked this up, I decided to message the guy about the A520 because I remember when I saw his ad, I looked at his address and he was like literally just around the corner from the guy with the Ryzen 5 1600. So then I messaged him again because he didn't get back to me, but then he said he wanted $30. And I'm thinking to myself, well, A520 motherboard, 30 Aussie dollars, I mean, that's like half of retail at least. So we'll go pick that up anyway, even if it's at asking price. So we've now just scored that. But then I got thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, I haven't got a graphics card this month. That's absolutely insane. I don't think I've ever gone through a parts hunt without getting at least one graphics card. So I'm searching high and low, and a 1080 Ti comes up at 600 Aussie dollars. So I'm just waiting on the guy to get back to me now because it's 9 p.m. Got a car full of PC parts, used PC parts, and I'm waiting on another deal before I get home because this guy is pretty close, probably about a 10-minute drive from where I am now. So hopefully we can score this 1080 Ti, and that would just, man, I've got to unpack all this stuff too. That's what anyway, let's just go, wait a little bit, and then hit it up. And we just got back and it's pretty late at night, so I ended up actually talking to the guy with the GTX 1080 Ti for quite a little while, and then of course I had to unpack all this stuff, carry it down 2 flights of stairs, and as you can see there is a lot of stuff here. But we're going to wake up in the morning, we'll check for some more deals because I only got 1 GPU and I kind of want to get more. The prices we've paid for all this stuff right here on the table, and we will as well check out what's inside some of these rigs, but we'll do that in the morning. We had so many deals that we picked up yesterday on the road, but we'll go through them individually and tell you guys why I selected each deal, because I guess a lot of people want to go through my head and they're like, Brian, you know, what are you thinking? Why are you getting these deals for this price? What's the reasoning behind it? Let's talk about that all right now. And I'll tell you guys, first of all, with the G-Skill memory here, 16 gigabytes of DDR3 for $50. Again, $50 isn't too bad for DDR3, especially when it's the G-Skill stuff. Now, for me particularly, I look for this stuff because I've had builds that have come through and they only work with this type of memory. So people will either trade builds in or they'll sell me stuff and they just think, oh, this stuff doesn't work, these motherboards don't work, and then I put some G-Skill memory in, bang, the whole motherboard, CPU, and everything works. So you've got a gaming PC that will otherwise someone thought it was faulty when it's really just memory compatibility. But this stuff is the most compatible DDR3 memory I've ever tried, and so I always go for that stuff if I can. Now, the person who sold me that would sell me this memory contingent on me buying some of these his other stuff. And I just went through and I was like, okay, this is actually not too bad. So he had 4th gen i3 motherboards and 8 gigabytes of RAM each for $50. Then he had an i7 3770 with 16 gigabytes of RAM. That's actually in the Dell, sorry. And they did that for $100. And then we had here, I think it's 12 gigabytes of RAM, and it may be a 2nd gen board for $50. So I was like, okay, chuck the whole lot together. That was $250 in total, which is really good. I mean, considering this Dell motherboard doesn't actually look like it's proprietary, so I should be able to take it out of that case. And I might have to do something with the power switch, because I believe these right here, they had a little bit of a problem with the power switches needing 3 pins rather than 2 pins. But anyway, on to the next deal. Ryzen 5 1600. This right here, $90, is going to go really good, especially even if we look at this next deal here. $30 for an A520. I just got to add in some DDR4 memory, and I've got myself a modern gaming 6-core 12-threaded outfit for like half the price of a Ryzen 5 3600 or something like that. So really cheap there. You can't go wrong. And I mean, are you going to see that extra performance versus a Ryzen 5 3600 if you say grab a budget graphics card? And I don't really think so. So that's what it's at. If you're going with the entry level, the mid range, always you don't have to go too crazy on your motherboard and your CPU. If it's going to work, it's going to work. But then we got here the GTX 1080 Ti, and we got this for 600 Aussie dollars. So that's a pretty solid pickup, considering I do want to make a few high-end rigs. I mean, right now, it's pretty funny because right now the market is focusing on, a lot of people are looking for GTX 970s, 1060s, 1070s, and so every month I'll sort of have a look around and see where the focus isn't. And at the moment, at this month, I kind of saw like 1080 Ti's were sort of being a little bit forgotten about, and so that makes the price a little bit better. And then the last one here on the independent kind of deals, outside of the massive deals, was 16 gigabytes of RAM and 2 i7 3770s. So we picked this up for $140. So that's not too bad, considering I can work with them, especially if we got some of those 2nd gen boards. We can update the BIOS, and then we got 16 gigabytes of RAM, i7 motherboard for relatively cheap. Now, here's the Les deal right here on the table. This one has so much to offer. 4 power supplies straight away. He did them for, I believe it was $60 for the 4 of these power supplies. Now, they're all tested good, and that's the most important thing. If you got the tested good on the power supply readout, then 99% of the time the power supply is going to be pretty good. That's what I've found. Now, except for this one here, if you want to use this in a gaming PC, especially in a gaming PC, office PC, fair enough. But in a gaming PC, you better be rolling that Kenny Loggins. But then over here we have now hard drives. We got 500 gigabytes, $10 a pop. So we had 5 of those, $10 each. And then we had 2 terabytes. Les would do them for $25 a pop. Now, if I'm building, especially with 2 terabytes, I like these because if I'm building a higher end rig, usually someone will want a 2 terabyte hard drive in there. And so if you're going to be putting, say, a 500 gigabyte M.2 and you got a 2 terabyte, I've already saved $40 versus, say, buying a new one off the shelves for $69. So me getting this for $25 is, in my opinion, a bargain, since it is backup storage as well. And it's also HDST, especially around this time frame. They were making some of the most reliable drives. So I think I got a pretty good pickup with that deal right there. But then we've got to go over some of these individual cases right here, especially this CS Storm right here. I remember someone in the comments was really onto me. They said they really wanted to get a CM Storm. So if you're that dude in the comments and you really want this case, then hit me up in the comments, because I just remember someone was like, oh, I want a CM Storm case so bad, Brian. If you ever come across one, keep it aside. And I think it's mainly because it's got this handle on the top, and I ended up scoring that off Les for 140 Aussie dollars. So next up here, we've got another Cooler Master case and an i7 2600, as well as 8 gigabytes of RAM, some pretty dud graphics card. I'm not really going to look at that. But we've got a 700 watt Silent Pro Cooler Master power supply, 256 gigabyte SSD. And so for 100, Les was asking 130 Aussie for it. I was like, okay, it's pretty decent considering this case is actually a very sturdy case. I can work with this case, especially if I put in a decent graphics card, and I got myself a solid gaming PC for a flip here. And then the last of the interesting builds was mainly the specs. I mean, H97, i7 4770K, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabyte SSD. I was gonna say Bell power supply, but that's nothing to really like, boast about. I mean, roll the Kenny Loggins music again. So what I'll probably end up doing is changing out that power supply and maybe even just put out the components of this case right here, because even though the case is a Corsair case, it's one of those older Corsair cases, so there's really nothing attractive about it if you were going to flip this in a build. And then last up from the deals on Les, we ended up getting 6 monitors for 150 Aussie dollars. I always need monitors when it comes to flipping PCs, but you're probably looking at all these PCs right here, especially all these motherboards in this box. And this was the deal that I ended up getting for 620 Aussie dollars. So this was 7 first-gen motherboards. Now, the reason I don't mind first-gen motherboards is because they work with anything. It was before they put in secure boot and all those settings that made especially some of these second gens here, not work. So when it comes to first gens, if you grab an X3450, for example, or an i7 870, which you can get for really cheap, sometimes people just give them away, you still get yourself a capable little budget gaming PC, especially if you couple it with some RGB, and then from there, you put in a decent graphics card. Now, we will get onto the graphics card situation very soon. These ones mainly here, I'll pull out all the parts that are good. Say, for instance, they got i7s in them, I'll pull out the i7s, put in an i3. We got an Office PC, but these two right here are i7 4770s. I believe they have 16 gigabytes of RAM in them each, so there also might be some drives in there, but I've got to go through all those and pretty much just test them out and pull out all the good stuff versus the bad stuff. And so after all those deals, we're now back left looking for one important piece of the puzzle still, and that is graphics cards. Now, I took a look this morning at GTX 970s, 960s, just going through the usual 700 series as well as 1050s and whatnot, and all the prices on the used market right now, in my opinion, a lot of what's up there already is simply overpriced. So when I went to Umart, I'm just looking for something especially to bridge me between the budget gaming sector and what I've got here in terms of putting graphics cards in these PCs. And so I noticed they've got GT 1030s, 2GB GDDR5 versions, and they're going for $119. So I've purchased 4 of these locally because I want to do a test run and just see if I can put together some budget gaming PCs and see how they do, since I know for a fact the GT 1030 will play games like CSGO, like Fortnite, like Valorant, and it'll do so with pretty decent FPS. And so if these are all the top played games and people only want to spend a certain amount on a gaming PC, and there's a GTX 760 on the used market for $100 and people won't budge, that card is really old, right? If I buy that card, I got to run the risk that maybe in a month's time it doesn't work anymore, as well as have to clean it up. If there's a GT 1030 2GB with warranty going for 119 Aussie dollars, it's actually not too bad considering the card, even though compared to traditional standards, when a GTX 1060 was going for around 200 and something dollars, it was bad value then, but coming in its price point now, where it's not that much over MSRP and miners aren't targeting a GT 1030, it actually puts it in a pretty good spot and actually proves that the gamers aren't really the problem here. It's the miners that are buying up all these cards that would otherwise be good for gaming at their traditional MSRPs, and they're putting them on the mining benches and taking away from the gamers. So then the gamers have to target cards that the miners otherwise wouldn't use. And the GT 1030 is a perfect example of what pricing should be like if miners aren't in the market altogether. So I'm gonna pick up these 4 graphics cards right now, and you're probably like, why did you just buy 4? Why didn't you buy 10? I actually tried to buy 5, but they only got 4 in stock at that store. So I wanna quickly pick them up and see if I can get something ready for the weekend and see how the GT 1030 gaming PC goes. So I wanna pick up those cards right now and try out a few entry-level gaming PCs for the weekend. And with that aside, I will put up July's running tally for this month's parts hunt on the screen for you guys. Also stay tuned, because later on tonight, we're gonna be doing a live stream talking about used PC part prices, new PC part prices. It's just a live stream that I do every month,
to watch the prices of PC parts, and we can see together sort of what trends are emerging, what's the trends to hop on, and especially if you're a gamer building your first PC as well, you might be able to get some good advice and see what the meta is. And that about wraps it up for this month's parts hunt. Do let us know in the comment section below what was your favorite deal of the month. For me personally, I gotta say that CM Storm case, I actually see why a lot of people want it now. That handle really makes it convenient. The location of the handle actually makes it so that it's really balanced when you pick it up and you can carry it around. And I gotta say, it does kind of look pretty cool. I mean, I can see why someone would want to get this case. Me personally, I don't really move around that much. There's not much traveling going on, so I would have no real need for a CM Storm Trooper case like that. But you guys, let us know what deals impressed you and why. And we got the question of the day here, which comes from Chris Kadava, and they ask, what's better? Cheap dual rank 2x16 gigabytes of 3600 MHz CL16 versus expensive 2x8 4000 MHz CL14. I would personally, if you're talking about the same price here, I would go for the 2x16 gigabyte kit any day of the week, especially with Ryzen, because then you can lock in that Infinity fabric of 1800 megahertz, and then you've got a 1T, 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 as opposed to 4000, getting that 2000 megahertz clock on the other timings there. That might not work. Actually, a lot of times it doesn't work. So I'd go for the 3600 megahertz, and then you can have double the RAM as well. 32 gigabytes, in my opinion, is a really nice place to be at if you're building a new gaming PC and you can afford the 2x16 kit to begin with. And of course, coupled on the fact that another thing is too, as when we test benchmarks, a lot of us guys just test the games themselves, when in the real world, a lot of people will have Chrome tabs open, they'll have maybe another YouTube video playing, and when they respawn or whatever, they're quickly alt-tabbing and watching what's going on or talking with their mates on other programs. So multitasking is, I'd say, for a lot of people, a big factor that doesn't get tested in benchmarks. Though as for that testing, if that's something you want to see happen, maybe in future CPU reviews, then do let us know in the comment section below. I can make that happen. And with that aside, hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. And if you stayed this far and you're enjoying the Tech Yes content, then be sure to hit that sub button, ring that bell, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.